Man City lost their greatest ever manager, Pep Guardiola, and possibly the Premier League's greatest ever manager in Pep Guardiola. They also lost the title race. They could be about to lose Rodri. Can they go again and challenge for the Premier League? We're going to be looking through their financial situation as well as their squad analysis to find out through a from a rival lens series. So look out for that. We're also going to be reviewing, re-examining Newcastle's current transfer window, current transfer strategy. All of our good friend of the channel, Bobby Fairview, and we're gonna ask ourselves: Are Newcastle United, our City, heading in the right direction? Find out right here on Toon Tactics TV, folks.
Oh, brilliant from Sham. And now Murphy could take on the shot. Fabian Sham
All right, folks. I hope you guys are all well. I hope you guys are all blessed and having a fantastic week. I am very blessed to have you guys here. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here with me. And on tonight's show, we will be talking about Man City as part of our From Our Rivals Lens series. We've covered Aston Villa, we've covered Brighton, we've covered Man United, we've covered Arsenal, we've covered Chelsea. And today we are covering Manchester City, looking at their financial situation into the summer window. What is the bottom line of the SCR? Looking at their squad analysis, where they're at now, what their gaps are. Can they, asking ourselves, can they challenge again? Where are they in terms of in being able to challenge again, but also can they get back that Premier League title? Will be the question we're asking. And in the next second part of the show, we're also going to be reviewing Newcastle's current transfer situation, looking at our strategy, doing all of this with our good friend of the channel, Bobby Fair, because you know you're going to get authentic, well informed, well thought out, comprehensive conversations and substance from our good man Bobby Fairview, and honest as well, because you know, I've alluded, us Toon fans can be about our own team, so it's good to get some external word on our club before we welcome our main our friend of the channel. Good to see my man Adrian here. God bless you. Even to you, sir. Good to see my man James here. God bless you, sir. Really good to see you. All right. Well, without further ado, let's welcome our friend of the channel, Mr. Bobby Fairview. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, enjoying the summer. How are you? And how is the chat?
Sir, I'm living life to the full, living life to the full. Literally, it's funny because as we're even talking, I'm having to also keep one eye out on the old X account to see if there's been any news on Bruno Gomes or anything else like that. But yeah, lots to discuss. Put it that way. Lots to discuss.
Well,
Man.
it's been an interesting summer. I think you and I have been, we came into this summer pretty optimistic about everything, certainly as it relates to Newcastle. I was obviously less optimistic about Chelsea, but things are moving in an interesting direction. So I thought it'd be great if you and I can, have a midsummer review to see where we are and basically own up to a few of the predictions that we've made.
Exactly. I'm still optimistic, by the way. I know that kind of kills you.
Window? No. Window is still very much open. The whole 6 weeks to go? 5 weeks to
go? Yeah. We've still got 6 weeks to go. Lots. I think it's really gonna go off. I feel like this is the calm before the storm, to be honest with you. I really do. I really do. Well, but we want to talk about City today. Um, I was gonna make the joke if City are your Chelsea's co-defendants.
Well,
When
I
it
mean,
comes,
it's interesting that you bring me on as soon as we're discussing Maresca, because I've never hid my feelings about him. But I'll try to be objective today.
it's always funny. The more you criticize him, the higher up the ladder he seems to get, which is
Man,
crazy.
this guy is so slick. Best CV manager I have ever come across, boy.
I knew you'd appreciate the thumbnail as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. That was a little bit too much for Pep.
We're going to talk about it first half as the audience in the chat always know. We're going to first discuss a little bit of the financial situation, so we kind of get a view of where the teams are at, so where City are at going into this window, what we can expect from them. And then we are going to go into their squad from last year to see where those gaps and everything that need to be filled. So, and bearing in mind, I might ask you, but tell me what you can at some point in terms of. Obviously, we haven't heard about their legal situation just yet, but I'll be curious to know towards the end of this, from what you know, what you make of it as well. 'Cause I don't think we've discussed it in detail before. Okay, so this is taken from Greg Cordell and who was it? Financial analyst Greg Cordell and the Esk from Paul Quinn. So from both of their articles, and if folks know Greg Cordell, he is what is on his X account, but I know he's like a financial expert, not necessarily like into football, but he not like a football expert, but he got himself into kind of football analysis a little bit like Kieran Maguire has. But Kieran Maguire, people know that he's a professor in finance and accounting, but he's obviously got a passion and love for finances, similar to Craig Cordell. So I've used both these kind of articles from Greg Cordell and from the ESC. I wanted to know the bottom line of where they are in their, where City are in their financial situation. I didn't necessarily go through every ins and outs in terms of how, why what contributes to the revenue. We know a big part of that, massive part of that, is their kind of the City Academy. Bobby, you know all about the City Academy.
Sure.
These players who go, geez, wait, from top of your head, Bobby, how much money do you think Chelsea have spent on City players?
I'm feeling that the number is around 300 million at this point. I think
Amazing.
I saw a list the other day. And I think in terms of, and I'm not sure how many of them have actually hit as I think about it. Cole Palmer had a great season once. So let's see how he comes back from his injury. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something like, there are a lot of conspiracy theories at Chelsea about that. But we'll get into that another time.
You and Villa as well. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get about you and Villa, the other co-defendant. I before you even say anything, I know you prefer how Villa move with their finances and the Villa owners move with their finances compared to how the Newcastle owners move with their. I know. I can just imagine you're a bigger fan of how City do their, not City, how Villa do their approach.
I do. I really have a lot of respect for it. But and yeah, if we have some time, we should talk about that Morgan Rogers deal at the end. But yeah, Villa.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting contrast to City. And what I've never really fully, and I need to spend some time researching it, how does City manage to leverage their commercial revenue to get this SCR to where it is? And I think that's something that Newcastle fans should really spend some time researching, because that is a blueprint for you to access what you think might be available coming out of the PIF, right? City have done a fantastic job managing their SCR, given the relative size of their stadium and fan base.
Well, that's what they're getting investigated for.
Well, no, people say that, but I think a lot of these charges are actually really old. I don't think it has anything to do. I don't think it has anything to do with the last 7 years, as far as I understand it.
But I think it gave them a good platform. I think if Newcastle had the platform that they had in the first, I don't know, 10, 11 years they were able to operate, do you know what I mean? I think, with the sponsorship deals that weren't being, alleged, they weren't as stringent as they are now. It's different. I mean, it's relevant. We're going on a tangent, but it's a relevant tangent. It's like, now the way the sponsors are, we had Adidas, right? The whole reason why they had laws around sponsorship deals was obviously, you can't get, inflated sponsorship deals from people with your own company. But it's also gone into other sponsors. So, for instance, we've got Adidas who have to justify to the Premier League, not to Newcastle, but to the Premier League, why they want to invest the money that they want to invest in Newcastle. What has that got to do with the Premier League? I have no idea. But this is what slows down sponsorship deals. We had like 3 or 4 sponsors in the pipeline for absolutely ages. Why they have to justify their amount is insane. If they want to pay 50 million and say Adidas, not anybody that is related to PIF or associated on the PIF or anything like that. If Adidas, for instance, want to give us 50 million a year, and the Premier League says, nah, but if we put all the based on whatever algorithms they use, it's only worth 40 million.
Got it.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what do you City didn't have that, but this is the age that Newcastle are in. So there's a platform, I guess where they're at. So, but let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go on.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how much of the segment you want to spend on it, but I mean, I think here's why I'm less sympathetic to that view. The amount of time that has passed since they would have been able to build that base is over 10 years. I think the rules are sufficiently stringent, and I get Newcastle's fans' feelings about the rules, okay? But we got to take a step back and understand the purpose of these rules. And it's really to make sure that you don't have clubs accessing more money than other clubs just because of stuff off the pitch. You want to keep it an even playing field. I get that, because you'll be pushing smaller clubs to always be on the edge of their budgets, always be on the edge of solvency. And the issue is not containing the big clubs, but it's protecting the small ones who do not have access to the funding. And these rules have been around long enough that I think that people should have adjusted to them by now. You see Chelsea doing something really creative. Like I myself, actually, for the level of incompetence I've seen for the last 4 years, been shocked at how creative that Morgan Rogers deal was to break a British transfer record. I know it's probably not my guys that came up with it. It's probably the Villa guys who thought this up, but they made a fantastic profit off of Rogers. And it looks like by the end of the window, it's going to be funded on both sides. So we'll give them 2 players and we got one of theirs, and everybody puts a profit. So there are creative things that can be done. I think City's been on the cutting edge of this. I know they spent a lot in the early, like in 2010, 11, 12, that era when they were just buying players that flopped, they didn't care. I think they've stopped doing that for a while. And they've somehow managed to build what I think is the most successful multi-club model. So it's reasonably well integrated. The players, there are very few players making it through the system to City itself. So I don't think that's even necessarily the purpose of a multi-club. But I think they've really done a good job of normalizing sponsorship that might not meet the obvious criteria as to why the money is being given, meaning the fans who will be becoming aware of City and its sponsorship, etc. is, I don't know how big the UAE is, for example, for them to justify those levels of sponsorship, but they somehow managed to get it to work. So City is one of these clubs that I think have been doing things creatively, less aggressively than Chelsea, but they've done a fantastic job managing their SCR.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously they paid just alone, Chelsea alone has spent 300 million on City players, and part of their revenue that they obviously included in that is their is
Sell-on fees.
their is their sell-on fees for their players, as well as the multi-club model that they have. This is something that we want the Newcastle. And you know what? I just think as you were talking, maybe me and you, Bobby, need to. I feel like we need to do a history on cities, do a show specifically on cities,
Yep.
financial growth and what they did.
And compared to Newcastle's, yeah, that'd be a good show.
Yeah, we can do that. So, speaking of, so what we've got is essentially into this again. These are calculated estimations from Greg Cordell and the ESC, and they both in a roundabout way have said that into the current summer window, City probably have somewhere between 5 to 7% SCR headroom. Obviously, they're under the Champions League.
That's a lot.
Champions League regulations. A lot under regulations, which is 70%. Based on rising commercial revenues, exactly what Bobby was talking about. But if you're just talking about, I forgot who the players that they've sold recently already. They're about to sell Savinho as well, but also their commercial revenue and everything else. So they've got anywhere between 5 to 7 commercial headroom. That's not mentioning the 2 domestic trophies they won, their second position in the Premier League, the Champions League stuff, the players that they've sold, and everything else. So that lets you know that there's something between 5 to 7%, which is essentially about a conservative estimate of 40 to 55 million annual squad cost room headroom, which is, we're going to break down in a minute what that actually could look like. But that's what the 5 to 7% looks like at this moment in time. So that would essentially be Man City would be able to spend somewhere between, before having to make any player sales, Man City could spend between 150 to 200 million in transfers before having to sell any players. That is how much Man City could spend. That is their current headroom that they've made, Bobby. Before we kind of go into the breakdown
I just want to make sure I'm understanding that number, because the accountant in me always wants to reconcile what we think people can spend based on the income statement.
Yeah.
Versus the balance sheet. and apologies for getting a little bit too technical there, but we always have to remember that on the income statement, what comes through for a player every year is their wages and their amortization. And if you're going to sell that player in the current year, any gain or loss that you make from the profit from that sale relative to your amortized cost, right? So the way I tend to think about it is when you have P&L, when you have SCR headroom, think about in terms of 1/5 of the transfer fee is what comes through the income statement in any given year. So in other words, when you see a number on the income statement, you can actually accommodate 5 times that in terms of players, because you only recognize 1/5 of the player's cost in any year. Is that making sense what I just explained there? So the headroom is actually a lot more than you think, because it's the operating cost of the player that matters to the income statement, not the transfer fee. Only 1/5 of the transfer fee ever comes through the income statement in any given year.
So does it fit in does this next part, the breakup of it, kind of fit into what you're saying?
Well, so exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Go on. So I know that you're seeing this for the first time, but I feel like it makes sense of what you're saying. What I was going to say, and you can take over, is, so give an example. So say City get player A for 80 million on a 5-year contract, annual amortization around 16 million, wages 10 million. So the total for that particular player per year would be around 26 million, right? So there's about, so with the, say City have got a 50 million pound headroom, we're guessing in terms of it's between 45 to 55, they can probably get two of those players, three of those players.
Toon tactics
Without,
is always ahead of the game. Exactly right, my friend.
yeah. So go into BNC, Bobby. Go into BNC and kind of explain it further for folks.
Yeah, so this is the 1/5 that I was talking about, right? Where
Right.
the transfer fee, if I understand your schedule well here, is 60 million. Now the 5 years is standard, because if you remember when Blue Coast started their long contract game, there were no rules around how long you can amortize a player for. So we were putting the likes of Enzo Fernandez on a 9-year contract, and therefore dividing his transfer fee into 9, and therefore in your annual amortization column, it ends up being a small number, although you paid a lot for him, right? So 60 million pound player, to your point here. But sorry, they changed the rules, so they can no longer amortize for 9 years. Everybody has to be amortized, but in 5 years. So that's why you're seeing consistently here 5 years, 5 years, 5 years, although the contract lengths might be all different for each of these players. So for player B, what we're saying is 12 million, 1/5 of that charge comes through the income statement towards your SCR headroom in any given year and the wages of that player. So you had a slide here which basically went straight to what I was trying to explain there just now. Where people need to think about, don't think about the SCR headroom as being the full transfer fee of the player.
Exactly.
You need to, the P&L hit is 1/5 of its transfer value and the wages. So that's where you create the capacity.
That's exactly it. And I wince sometimes, especially online, when I hear or when I witness Newcastle fans in particular griping around, what Tottenham have spent, what Villa have spent, what Chelsea have spent, because we're always going to get picked up for it, and we're always going to get picked up and pulled apart from it by the mainstream media, by other content creators, because they know what we're discussing now. We've known it on this channel. We've been talking about it for a number of years now. But obviously, the media aren't going to be like, asking me to do an interview or asking anybody else who knows knowledge about this from the Toon fan base. They're going to pick our fan base. And I'm always saying to people, go on.
Yeah, go on. No,
go.
Go.
No, I was going to say, I'm always like, we as fans, and like, we've got to know a little bit better, understand a little bit better how these things work, why different teams are able to spend what they spend. That's why I really enjoy doing, From a Rivals Lens series, especially with folks like yourself, because we've really been really in depth. We've been quite forensic, like whether it's talking about Chelsea accounts, whether it's talking about, what we're talking about now, where I feel like, this is, we need a lot more of this, to be honest. But you was going to say something, Bobby.
Yeah, I was just going to react to the contrast that you made there in terms of how this impacts Newcastle relative to Villa, Chelsea, and City, and it's a really interesting contrast that you've actually touched on. And based on the prior slide, of those 4 clubs, the only club that has SCR headroom is City, right? So if you think about Chelsea, Villa, Newcastle, Villa, Chelsea, City, and Newcastle. Of those 4, the only one that has SCR headroom to accommodate player costs as you're presenting it here is City. Villa is very interesting, and Villa and Chelsea, as you can tell, are right now trying to manage their headroom by selling players and bringing a gain on sale into the income statement, because the other thing that impacts the SCR calculation is the gain or loss on sale of the player, of a player's so the transfer fee less their book value. That gain that you make from the sale also comes into the SCR calculation. So what Villa and Chelsea are trying to do is to churn players, sell them at a reasonable profit to create SCR headroom, whereas City has managed to improve the top line, bring in more revenue, so that they're not doing that flip game to try to get profits in. Maybe occasionally when they want to, in a year or two, they might opportunistically sell a player. But City's players are also usually pretty reasonable. They don't sell them for exorbitant fees either. They tend to be sold in the $40 to $60 million range. And Villa, I think, have done a better job of selling players that they have acquired for a lower price for much higher. I'm concerned about Chelsea because they buy players at a very high price point. So they're relying on this same flipping of players to make a gain on sale to improve the SCR position. That's unpredictable. You don't know who you're going to sell in any given year, and you don't know how much you're going to sell them for. So it's difficult for you to plan your finances based on that kind of a model. But Chelsea flips at sufficient volume that they've been able to stay on the edge. Villa does a better job at harvesting profits because they buy at a cheaper price point. Newcastle is confusing. And they like Villa and Chelsea don't have the headroom. This year, they've harvested a ton of profit based on who they've sold. So I don't think SCR is going to be a problem for the next 3 years. But because it's lumpy, I think Newcastle is probably a little bit nervous about committing to transfers that would incur costs, because if they can't make sales in the future, their revenue is so thin that they'll find themselves in more trouble, certainly than the Chelsea. I don't know about Villa, but Newcastle is obviously a lot less about taking risk than Villa and Chelsea is. Villa and Chelsea are always living on the edge, and I think that's where the Newcastle fans are justified in feeling a little frustrated that your administration is actually not pushing the envelope and taking risks a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't want to make it about Newcastle, but I was going to say, I think one way we're addressing that, we're an emerging picture of how I think we're addressing that, and I'm going to go to the chat in a moment, is even with the 4 players that we've bought so far, they're all 20-year-olds from abroad. I would wager that, it's not a play on words, but I would wager, for instance, that their wages are anywhere between 20 to 30K max, 20 to 40K max, right?
Yeah.
Most of them came on a fee between 20 to 40 million pounds. Compare that to the players who've left, who are on 100K plus, and all the book value and the money that's going to come back from that. So I feel like Newcastle, the project is going through a reset, where the way everything started was the cart went before the horse. So Newcastle were on the field outperforming at a rate that was outperforming what was going off the field. So we were getting into Champions Leagues, we were winning domestic trophies or getting into finals. But off the field, we weren't able to secure the revenue, sponsorship deals at the speed and at the amount that we needed to be able to keep up pace with what we were doing. And that ran its course. So we had to get every transfer that we were doing perfect. So we were running a very thin line. But with that such a small room for error, we were eventually going to make a mistake. And that mistake obviously happened from last year with the first kind of shot across the bows of obviously the Isak situation. We're not going to go into it too much. But anyway, the whole transfer window, or at least most of the transfer window, was a failure, and it cost us, and it's costing us to now. Having to rectify that now is as I mentioned, we've got very young players with very low wages. So we're kind of reversing the
basically what Bluco has done for the last 3 years is where you're heading to now. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously,
let me give you a heads up. It doesn't work. So let's hope that by the end of the window it looks less. And Bluco is pretty much admitting that right now, and that's why we are recruiting Jordan Henderson. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
now we're going to get into Newcastle. I don't think it's exactly the same with Chelsea and Newcastle, but we'll get into it because your project was literally on steroids. You were buying 10 plus players, almost like it felt like per transfer window. You had all these young players. You also had a huge churn of managers and everything else, which added to the dysfunction that was happening at Chelsea, whereas Newcastle have had one manager. We currently have one of the second or first oldest team in the league. So if anything, we're rebalancing, we're resetting everything that was happening on and off the field. And because we don't have the how do I say it? We don't have what Chelsea have in terms of massive access to or massive financial headroom to be able to do what you did. It's helping us to kind of to work within the lines.
So we haven't really done anything yet. There's a ton of players that need to be sold, but we do need to get back to City. So I keep distracting you. I'll let you get back to your agenda.
It's good conversation. I've got a few more people in the chat. Good to see some old and new faces. Good to see my man Warbojog here. God bless you. Hey Phil, hey, and Bobby. Good to see you, Warbojog. Good to see you, sir. Good to see. I think it's a City fan. Dom Gecko, welcome to the show. God bless you. Warbojog, because first of all, I want to congratulate Bobby. Our Chelsea manages to pass its trash to other clubs needs to be studied. That club is the equivalent of patient zero for COVID and all other pandemics.
Big up, Warbojog. Listen, man. I wish we were that good. I mean, I think you probably feel the brunt of it because you've been an Arsenal fan, buying a little bit of a few of our rejects for the last 2 years. But I think more broadly, I am a bit concerned about our failure to sell. We've got a ton of players that need to be sold, man. And let me tell you, the spending that we've done this summer, when we talk about cart before the horse, our net spend is negative 100 million pounds right now. And even if we don't think that's a solvency issue, UEFA will have something to say about that if it's not rectified by the end of the window.
There you have it. Okay. So, in conclusion, Bobby, City have somewhere between a 5 to 7 financial SCR headroom, so 63, 65%. Which comes out at 45 to 55 million headroom. We've talked about and we've broken down what that means. It doesn't mean that they've got a 40 million, 50 million pound budget, but it breaks down like this in terms of finances. You guys can see player A, player B. It breaks down into amortization. So if City bought, for instance, can buy the equivalent of 3 player A's for a fee of 80 million on a 5-year contract, which breaks down into 16 million amortization and wages and 10 million, for instance, which allows them to spend that. Or, for instance, about 4 or 5 player Bs or a little bit more, 5 or 6 player Cs if they choose to. So that's how that costing breaks down. Bobby and I talked about, really actually, a lot more extensively, actually. I think we were worried about going off on a tangent, but we actually talked very extensively about City's history in terms of sponsorship deals, how aggressive they were in the right places in order to be able to build themselves a financial platform to have this stuff, which now also includes obviously multi-club ownership, the City Group, the academies that they've got where they've been buying and selling players, as well as the commercial revenue, which Bobby and I have already kind of spawned an idea where we're gonna look at the historical building and development of City's financial empire and kind of match it to Newcastle and see where Newcastle are at with that. I think that would be really, really good. So essentially, as just to let folks know, is that City, before having to make any player sales, and they are going to make player sales. They already made money from sell-on fees, like the Rodgers deal, a few others as well. So City don't even have to sell players themselves. They've already got they've got like their own pyramid scheme. They've got their own sellers out there, and before they have to make any player sales, City can spend between 150 to 200 million pounds should they want to. But obviously, with player sales as well included, they're going to be able to spend even more. Don't know if you want to add anything, Bobby, before we move on from the financial situation for City.
Sure. I'll just make a couple of comments here, and I do follow both Greg and Paul Quinn as well, and just looking at the numbers, what City has been able to do is, and it kind of explains the picture a little bit. They've been able to grow their commercial revenues.
Bobby,
Sure.
can I interrupt you, because we've got a special guest coming on, and I think it's going to be good for him to hear your conclusion as well and kind of catch him up as well, because I want to get his take on this as well. And
Sure.
I want to introduce my man Vator. When I first came into this game 3 years ago today, like I had 0 subscribers. And I reached out to one of the people I reached out to was Vator, who I saw on numerous shows and everything else. Really loved his calm way in order to kind of talking about and backing his club in the midst of some insane shows. He knows what I'm talking about, but he still gets his point across as a gentleman should. I've got a lot of respect for him for not only helping me out in those times, but our continued kind of friendship before that time. So it's an absolute honor. We've got him for a very short time, so I'm very, very keen to get as much as we can from him before he's having to go himself. But welcome to the show, Vator. How are you doing, sir? And also introduce you to my man Bobby here as well. I don't know if you guys have met before, but welcome, Vator.
Much appreciated. Let me know hopefully my audio, all that's nice and clean.
Yeah.
Listen, anytime I get an invite and the schedule works out, again, the time zone kind of kills me a little bit. It's 4:45 out here, so I do have to manage things within the workday, but much appreciated for the invite. Bobby, good looking out. I was listening before joining the conversation. This is funny, right? As we've all matured as fans, before we would care. We would know anything about the board. We know nothing about spending. All we cared about was who's playing for us. That was it. That was it. I love, and again, in particular, not to sidetrack things, but I've had to become kind of like an off the side moonlighting attorney with regards to my club. I've had to moonlight and be an accountant for my club, but at the end of the day, I love learning more and more about the business and about how the club manages. But it's a fascinating stuff, and I was very curious and very interested in also hearing what you guys were saying with regards to your clubs and others as it pertains to City. I'm going to be the first to raise my hand and say timing benefited us. All right. I hold no punches. I know for a fact, based off of how things have leaked over the years, even if you go back and you want to see how things were portrayed when Chelsea came into the mix, when City came into the mix, how they talked about where the state of football was going to go because the big bad monsters of what Chelsea were doing was ruining things, and what City were going to do was going to make it even worse. All that fear mongering has resulted in how they've kind of put things in a guise to protecting the sport, right? But when those that were already established were spending money, it wasn't an issue. But there was a challenge to who was going to remove those guys from being steady 1, 2, 3 tops of their clubs, right? I'll say this. We did benefit from the timing standpoint because there was no talks of the FFP. There was no talks of where things were going with regards to protecting clubs from themselves, protecting owners from having clubs dissolved because they were being, quote unquote, irresponsible. But it was under also trying to be, we all want to win. So, and again, in this business, you're going to take some chances. You're going to take some risks. Even with regards to Chelsea, I know there was spoke about the model. going with regards to youth, maybe with this new ownership and looking at some of these players as assets, we know if we get them early, they're going to appreciate in terms of value. And whether we're taking the risk, there's the advantage of they're going to be worth more. So maybe we can discard them and move on. We see now that they're going, because again, from a manager standpoint, the manager just can't has a majority of youth amongst him. He needs to have some that have the experience, can kind of talk things down, to kind of also say, here's the vision of the manager, and translate that from manager to player, so that the leadership, the veterans that are coming to Chelsea, makes a lot of sense to me. But City and the timing of it, and again, I think when we have ambitious owners, and we have ambitious owners to also see the lay of the land, not to get down into the weeds, but there's many votes that come season after season with regards to raise your hand. Do you want this new ruling or not? City and again, selfishly don't raise their hand being like, we want this because it's just best for us. Sometimes it's with the state of football, like the state of can the Prem compete with the rest of the world with some of these rules? Can City compete and know that it's not going to hinder them and just be beneficial for the red cartel plus the 2, or should I say plus the 3, Chelsea, Spurs, and City, right? But these rules are hindering what should have been a kick-on season for Newcastle. And Toon, I know you're going to go on and speak on Newcastle a little later, but when you have, and we've spoken at length of this at times, when you have a new challenger and you have people that see an opportunity, like if any of you guys tuning in right now or right now live in the chat, there's a reason why there's Shark Tank. There's a reason why there's investment opportunities. You see something that is not quite established yet. You see something where the data kind of looks good and it's promising. I want to invest now. It's not established. It's not concrete, but I want to invest now. They come up with two close party transactions. No, we can't allow this. These partnership deals, we gotta scrutinize them. I think that would have benefited Newcastle tremendously, because you think of how they were investing, or the partnerships that they could have established because of that region in the world. Because okay, this could be our flagship club with regards to a country ownership. If you want to just break it down that way, I'm Canadian. I'm based here in Toronto. There was a time where NBA wise, we had the Vancouver Grizzlies and we had the Toronto Raptors. It's now, you guys don't know, the Grizzlies are now Memphis. It has nothing to do with. But there's only one team in Canada now. And one team in Canada has so many wanted to be a part of it. When you think of the new ownership that was going over to Newcastle, they would have, yes, close party transaction. They would have a lot of people in that region being like, you know what? Yeah, we'll give a little more over the value. Not this ridiculous 500 million or 2 billion that people want to fearmonger about, but you have had a lot that would have said, we want to be a part of the first. We want to be a part of this Newcastle that are going on to challenge and be relevant in the 2020s. Have taken advantage. City have now also looked at some of the ruling and said, you know what, let's future-proof ourselves. Let's put things in place where we won't be hindered, because if all you're going to be looking at is you can spend this because of how much your revenue is, okay, well, we got to create new revenue streams. We got to have additional partnerships and commercial deals. We have to actually look at the football city group or multiple club model. Let's try to find some efficiencies, maybe talking quote unquote amongst our partnerships or our family right now, and getting some of the young talent and invest amongst ourselves, because the young talent can be within our less established clubs or smaller clubs, and they can develop because we see them early, and as they mature, they can then go quote unquote to the first team, the city first team. I think the club's ambition has been as a result of also seeing I know I'm long-winded, apologies.
No, do your thing.
I think a lot of what City have done is because they've seen the drawbridges, they've seen some of the fences and the moats and the fortresses going up, because they know how things want to be guarded. Have we completely future-proof? No, but I think we saw some of the rulings that were coming down and tried to get ahead of it. This is where the Newcastles and the Aston Villas have to be adventurous. They have to be creative in terms of seeing how can they find or establish an approach with regards to revenue being their protective shield to be able to still not have to do the player swap in, swap out, getting poached from quote unquote bigger clubs. And it will take longer than it should, but it will take longer than it would have or that it did take with regards to a city in particular. When I also look at the debacle, because this one I kind of came in when you're talking, the fact that Newcastle had Champions League, and on the aftermath of that, you had a Liverpool who were more than willing to take your best talent, and as a result, the same things kind of happen. Strong talent that you have to move on because, again, a player's ambition is to win trophies. It's not really a fault to Newcastle, but in terms of how the system goes, these players do want to win trophies before the season's all over.
Yeah.
You're going to have all these clubs that are going to be like, okay, we'll take you, we'll present this to you. And now you've got to do what you did. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're able to do it again. You got the Tenalis, you got the Bruno G's, you got the Isaks before they were wanted by the big clubs. I think your scouting, I think your team can do that again. But yeah, it pushes things back now a few more seasons to have to get that young talent to a strong point where you're going to be challenging amongst City. And what we've done, the exits hurt me, man. The exits hurt me. Not only did I lose Pep, and again, Pep giving me 10 years could have never ever imagined. I thought, I'm gonna be honest with you, I thought 5 years I would have been like, ooh, because he first signed for 3, and I was like, if we get 5, and if he's able to win a Champions League in that 5, wow. He didn't win that 5, and I think that's the only reason. That's the only reason why he stayed longer. I'm not lying to you. I think Pep, obviously, he loved Manchester City in terms of how he talks about the club and our professionalism or our approach towards the game. Always highlights it. But I'm going to be honest with you. He is a serial winner, and I think for him, there were boxes to check with regards to what I'm going to do, what he did at Barca, what he did at Bayern, what I'm going to do at City. There's that motivation to be the first, to exceed things that were done by past greats, right? Sir Alex Ferguson, I'm sure, maybe it was never for anyone to publicly see, but I'm sure that Pep had something written down in some type of journal, or someone was in his ear and saying, you know what, here's what the greats in this league have done before you. The fact that he came in here and stayed as long as he did was because I think he was motivated to deliver that Champions League. And again, when we won that Champions League in the manner that we did, with it being a trouble, it was also, and again, guys, we didn't show great ambition after winning the trouble. I mean, many would say, you know what, you won the trouble, what more do you need to do? But then when we also take a step back, we see that whenever, and I'm going to use United as an example, whenever United were looking to keep on and doing the maths that they did, winning, double-digit prems, was because they kept strengthening. And again, they had a different time. They had the ability to take a strong player from a rival or from an up-and-coming club and just pluck it in and keep things going. But when we did our trouble, it was kind of like, you know what, let's steady this and let's just slightly improve. Let's not go on and as another madness, let's go on and try to win another trouble. But it was, let's keep what we got. And we won the 4-peat. Again, never, ever done in the Prem, never done in English football. When we did that, it was then, you know what, we pushed our luck. We pushed our luck a little too far and then had the season that we had, and obviously Pep moving on. But I think the 10 years that he gave us, I'm losing him. I'm hurting. I know I'm smiling right now, but I'm hurting. Losing Pep, losing Bernardo Silva, John Stones. Now Inter keeps taking our scraps, or players that have delivered so much for us, and Inter took John Stones. We've got, and again, the rumors, I honestly hate turning on social media right now. I hate it. And again, apologies. That's why I'm late. I haven't opened up the app like that. And I was like, oh snap, the 28th. I was making moves. Opening up the app is just killing me right now because everything is Rodri. But again, in a season where I'm gonna have Pep, Bernardo, Rodri going, I'm glad that my club went out and again, we've missed out being shrewd, being responsible. We've missed out on some midfielders that were potentially to strengthen and keep us going. Bellingham was one of them. Rice was one of them. Even if you wanna look at Verts, which again, strong rumors and many City fans were like, we got to get him. KDB was leaving, right? Not only that, the club is shown to be able to get talent not at that price tag. No one was telling me, Toon. No one was telling me that, bang for buck. I tune in, I listen. I got Judge Mo right now telling me, bang for buck, or price tag wise, when you think of what Rodgers went for, you know what? It's actually good business on what Tielemans was. It's actually good business on what Fernandez. I'm like, guys, really, that conversation, no one was saying that with regards to getting Reinders and Shirky and Nori last season when Liverpool spent that on Verts and Isak. But hey, a season later, we know how they spin things differently. I think my club is going to I think my club, you know how they like to talk favorably about clubs in red, but
oh yeah,
the way my club's moving, I think it's not a slam dunk. It's going to be success as usual. I think of all seasons is going to have the most questions. I have confidence in Maresca, but we don't know what his vision is. We got to wait and see it. It's also been so many voices that are accustomed to hearing Pep. I don't know how they take this season, and it's going to be a learning process. But how my club is spending with regards to it is because we sell incredibly well. We do. Again, Trafford, I didn't want him to go. I understand his ambition. He's got Donnarumma in front of him. He's like, listen, I want to play. I want first team. We sold him for 40. We sold him, was it 40 or 60?
Yeah, 40 million euros. 40 million.
Okay, yeah. So we sold him after I think we bought him for 30. A year later, we sell incredibly well. There's a reason why I'm seeing, again, our academy. There's so many examples of the academy, not necessarily directly out from City onto someone, but Rodgers academy. It looked like Chelsea, and if there was not a little bit of a dig, but I like looking at Chelsea because I see so many former City Academy players over there. It's love. My blue brothers over there. Yeah, I love it.
300 million worth. 300.
I didn't even know the number, but now I'm gonna flex that. Well,
Jordan, I think you should research it first. We just came across it on X. I'm big up to you, Ben. I'm a big fan. I love the way you cut those guys on a Monday night on A-listers.
I appreciate
shows
that
on YouTube. But look, I'm gonna be as one of the original members of the Blue Cartel. I'm gonna defend City actually in its history.
Okay,
a little bit more robustly than you just did. I would not make that concession about the start that you guys had. I mean, there was a period. When did you buy Tevez? What period was that? That was like 2011, 2012?
Tevez would have been, it would have been 20. We already had Aguero at the time. No. Was he before Aguero?
Let me quickly check.
But I think it was around that time frame.
It was around 2010, I think.
Where y'all were the indiscriminate buyers in the market. And fairly the league could point
2009.
Okay.
But this is what we're talking about, right? So this is over 15 years ago that City, quote unquote, had this head start. Okay, they were the indiscriminate buyers in the market for like 3 years, but nobody can convince me that is why they're successful today, right? And I think the story is actually in the numbers where you have grown your commercial revenue from 246 million back in 2019 to now it's been 340s for the last 3 years. So you've basically grown your commercial revenue by 100 million each year. That actually means that you can spend if you look at the schedule that's there, that means that 1/5 of your of any player you buy is covered by this revenue, right? Now, your amortization has actually been flat for the last 6 years.
Okay.
almost.
Yeah.
So in other words, of the players that you do a lot of transfer activity, but the amortization that actually hits your P&L every year was 145 million in 2019, and has only grown to 169 million in 24-25. So you've grown your commercial revenue exponentially. Your player amortization has been flat. Yes, you do good player sales, but again, that's not really. Sorry, that has grown by 100 million as well. So you've got two things going on. Your commercial revenue has grown by 100 million a year, and your player sales, your profit from player sales, has grown by 100 million a year. That is the story. It has nothing to do with 15 years ago. You've just been managing your club for the last 6 years. The growth is obvious in the income statement. You've grown 2 lines. Commercial revenue up by 100 million, and your player amortization is flat, and your profits from player sales has grown by 100 million. That is the story of City. Exactly. So you cannot criticize the club for running this club well, right? So I mean, I don't know why City fans aren't a bit more robust and saying, look at our P&L. That's why we do what we do.
The thing that I want to add to that too is, and again, maybe it is too shortly wrapped up with regards to the advantages of timing, but there was also, again, where some fans don't have the patience, is there were early mistakes, right? There was a point where City were the club to quote unquote overspend. That's why everybody was fearful of they're just gonna buy the talent, and then everything's gonna be, they're gonna be hoarding everything, and this is gonna be that never resulted in why City were successful, but it's the fear that they want to push forward. I want to emphasize too is the business has been run really well, and I want to emphasize how
that's the point.
I want to emphasize how much that is, and again, it's not the sexy part. When I first joined you, I was like, I knew nothing about revenue, financials when it was about cheering for City. It was like, 11? Let's go. Bench? Let's go. Even the rumors, I did not pay this much attention to rumors with regards to players. Back then, it was like, nah, if it happens, it happens. If not, let's go. But we've got to get so much into the weeds right now with regards to the details. I want to apologize. I do have to jump on a work call, but I will be back, guys. When it comes down to running the business well, no matter who you are, and again, I've said this often on my show, Spurs and how their business model works. I know not everyone can be in London. I know not everyone can create a stadium that's going to, have entertainment all year round. But there's many ways, success or not. And this is why Spurs fans, and again, I know they won Europa, but that fan base grew without any trophies, to be real, right? The business and the success grew without any hardware to speak of. So there is that business model that I think gives everyone that wants to look out and be like, you know what, there's ways to do it. It's not always happy. Fans aren't always going to like it, but sometimes you got to be inventive with it. Apologies. I will be back. I'm just going to jump off camera, but good looking out, guys. Great show.
Amazing. This is what I love about content creating. I thought, yeah, we'll do about 20, 30 minutes on this financial stuff. And then it's ended up being probably even probably an incredible just source of information. Bobby, Vator, absolutely phenomenal. But Bobby, before we move on, and Vator added so many good things there about what he was discussing, about how City built themselves up to where they are now, how even himself, he's had to become moonlight as a lawyer, as an accountant to be able to get these things. But he's so much more appreciative about where City are and how they've grown, which is incredible. Bobby, before we move on to the stuff on the field, I don't know I know you was going to say something before Vator came on. Do you want to add that now? And kind of, I'm sure you got some stuff you wanted to say about what maybe Vator said and others.
Sorry, I was on mute. I managed to drop it in there I think because I was as you were talking, I actually went on to Greg's X account and pulled up the City numbers just to make sure I was grounded in my understanding. And the story is in fact about City and what they're able to do today is a 6-year-old story. I don't think it goes back to that period where they had this start. Yes, City managed to benefit from being able to make mistakes that Newcastle can't make today. But that was actually, there weren't that many mistakes. There were probably 3 or 4 high profile flops. But that is so long ago that I really don't think is credible. Now, what I would say is that Newcastle has had a bigger global brand than Manchester City, just because you were a Premier League team for I believe, longer than they were in the more recent history, right? So they had the additional challenge of having to build that global fan base to be able to build that commercial revenue. And I think that's where they were smart. And so as I shared with Vator just now, the commercial revenue has almost has gone up by pretty much over 50%.
Incredible.
Right? And their player amortization is relatively flat. And then, of course, they have a strong book of players that they're able to flip and generate a fairly steady profit, which is around 100 million a year now. So, I mean, that's how they're able to do what they're doing: commercial revenue, managing amortization, and being able to generate profit from selling academy players.
Incredible. And the chat is ringing off as well. Good to see folks talking amongst themselves. I am gonna read the chat at some point. I just wanna because I didn't expect to go this. Yeah, I'm gonna push on a little bit and then I'll come back. But when I say I'm pushing on, it's not that I think the conversation had to be had. It was too phenomenal for me to all of a sudden just cut it off and just move on, and it made no sense to do that. But amazing. Okay, so pretty much we can say City are in a good shape. Basically, they're in very good shape. Very, 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 very good shape.
They've built a very good
Exactly. Okay, so let's get into, as folks know, those that have been following the From a Rivals Lens series, and for those of you that don't know, obviously the first part we discuss the finances. The second part we break down we do the squad analysis, and the squad analysis is broken down into 3 parts. This first part is essentially this is the minutes. So how the minutes are divided from the 25-26 season, which this one I got from FB Ref. Now for you guys that are so that you guys are aware and you're wondering why isn't it a little bit more, I typically only count players that have played 500 minutes and up throughout the season, because anywhere below that is academy players that got to run out in league cups and stuff like that, which have their importance, but for the overall purpose of the program and everything else, which is to understand, how good is the squad, how resilient is the squad, what is the squad depth, it doesn't have as much purpose. And with the minutes, we're going to go into the minutes. We're going to go into the actual quality. How resilient is that quality, and what the depth of that quality is the next part of the show as well. Is in the next parts of the squad analysis. Part of the reason why I use the minutes is it is an indicator of squad depth. It's an indicator of how the squad is rotated, but it also provides other kind of key takeaways and kind of adds to the overall analysis that we're going to have. So the overarching things is that in the 25-26 season, City, if you combine all the minutes together, City played roughly 58,000 minutes. 58,000.
How does that compare? How does that compare to Newcastle?
I haven't done Newcastle's yet, but Newcastle's.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
won't be as high as that. I'll tell you what, though. I think
it's not a Club World Cup.
From the top of my, it's the if you remember, they reached 2 domestic finals.
Yeah.
So that adds to that. Obviously, I think in the Champions League they reached a quarter final as well. and obviously then you've got the league season itself. I don't think this is. I have to go back to the FBref that I checked. I don't think it includes the Club World Cup, but I think a lot of this to do with the fact they've reached 2 domestic finals that adds to this. So they've actually played more minutes than Arsenal. Oh no, I'm trying to remember if they played more minutes than Arsenal. But I have to do an overall show where I put all these kind of things together and kind of compare the teams. You're invited, Bobby. So
Sure.
we're gonna be doing that. So 58,000 minutes spread over 24 players. What's interesting for me, Bobby, is if you look at the bottom of the screen, the squad minute tiers, and I've divided it into the higher dependency players, so the players that have played between 3,500 minutes and up. These are the players that, no matter what, pretty much, these made up the core of City and who kind of played the most minutes, which is an indicator for me anyway, in terms of the players that relied upon and who were the outstanding players that were the most important for them. There are 5 players in this. That is Haaland, and to my surprise, Nico O'Reilly, Mateus Nunes, Donnarumma, and I think that's Bernardo Silva. The surprise for me is a little bit of Nico Williams, not because of his quality, but
Nico O'Reilly.
Yeah, Nico O'Reilly, who's again a City Academy player. And I keep on saying, and we've been talking about the show, is the importance of your academy. It's your academy that fills out and strengthens your squad. It's not you just buying. We can be a bit obsessed with buying players, but it's the players that come from within your ranks that that fill out your squad and provide the rotation. Then you got obviously, and so I wanted to mention that, Bobby, because also the significance of Nico O'Reilly is that this is why it's a bit difficult to. You will see in late analysis because of Nico O'Reilly. Yes, he's positionally, when you see him on the big screen before a match starts, it says fullback. But if you watch them play, he's like an attacking midfielder. Do you know what I mean? He's playing in the midfield, or in the midfield and everything else like that. Then obviously you got the core players, those that play between 2,000 to 3,500 minutes.
I'm actually shocked that Rodri's on our list because I didn't think he played that much, but that's quite substantial. Yeah,
that's incredible, isn't it? That's the part that's incredible. He actually made up the minutes towards the end because I think he played in both finals as well. Foden, Doku, Cherky, Reinders, Diaz, Gonzalez, and Rodri. If you just take the high dependency and core players, right? So these are players that play between 2,000 minutes to 3,500 minutes and up. That's roughly 5 plus 10, about 12 players. So the biggest core of minutes throughout this season is spread amongst 12 players. You can only have 11 players on the pitch, which for me is an indicator of, when you're going to see this a little bit later, the key rotation and the squad rotation, but it's an indicator of the squad depth that City have, which is really, really impressive to me. And you can see, obviously, in terms of the key rotation players, these are the players that typically come on to, as either they start in League Cups, FA Cups, sometimes start in sometimes start in places during games, for instance, when they come back from Europe and the main core players are tired, or they take off, they come on, after 60 minutes, 78 minutes, 80 minutes. But if you add the key rotation players or the squad rotation players who are, he's got Stones, for instance, that is there, but you've also got Oscar Bob, and Rico Lewis, again, academy players. There's roughly, let me see, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You've got 11 players who are key rotation, squad rotation, who are supporting the high dependency and core players. And that to me is an indicator, Bobby, in terms of, like I said, in terms of the resilience and the squad depth they have. And even within that, there's already 3 or 4 City Academy players that I can see from the top of my head.
Are there as many as
What's your?
Mhm.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I was going to say. I was going to say, Bobby. What's your um, kind of key takeaway from this, and what's your kind of initial impression from what you've seen?
Sure. Couple observations, which will probably bounce off of some of what you said as well. Key rotation, I would actually promote Semenyo and Gehi to the high dependency, because you consider that they were only there for half a season, right? As far as I
Yes,
recall.
yes,
So
yes,
you
yes,
literally have to
yes. I
double their
agree.
numbers. If you were to double their minutes, if they were here for a full season, they would have probably been starters. So they would also be on the top row. So I would consider Semenyo and Gehi to be high
Yes,
dependency, right? Because
yeah,
once you double those minutes, they're the top row immediately. So you've got so that becomes 7 who are high dependency. And I'm not sure how that compares to the other clubs when you did this analysis. And it'll be good after you're finished the series to do a comparison of this box. But they've got 7 high dependency players. To your point about the academy, I'm actually only noticing then 2 academy players that are on those top tiers. So for as good as their academy is, it is not really supporting the first team.
Oh,
And
Foden. I was thinking, who's the other one? Foden. Sorry. Who's
yes,
the other one?
yes,
Yeah, of course.
yeah. So Foden and then O'Reilly,
Mhm.
and then so the academy is not quite supporting the first team as much as people might think. And given the fact that they're now making on average for the last 3 years 100 million of gain on player sales, it seems as though the academy is more in place to support the business end of it than to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
support the first team.
yeah.
And the fact that their 2 mid-season recruits immediately became high dependency players suggests to me that the squad and to maintain the quality at the top, competing at the highest level, they still rely on transfers to get that done, right? So I don't know if I made that point clearly, but
Yeah.
Gehi and Semenyo, the 2 January transfers, immediately became 2 of their 7 high dependency players. So that suggests to me a squad that is still reliant on transfers to compete at the highest level. And they absolutely made a difference. I don't think they would have pushed Arsenal the way they did had those 2 players not come in and had the impact they had. And it comes back to the whole question of buying experience. These guys are not 20 years old. 20-year-olds
No.
are not going to make a difference in this league. And those 2 transfers hammered that home. And that's where my biggest admiration for City is. There was that kid that went to Liverpool. I remember Chelsea was looking at buying a central defender, a centre back. The talk was about Gehi and a French player that ended up going to Liverpool.
Jacquet.
Jacquet, exactly. And when I combine their wages and transfer fee, Gehi is going to cost 100 million and Jacquet is going to cost 100 million. But what City did was to make the calculation that Jacquet is not going to help us compete with Arsenal. Gehi will. And the closer we get to Arsenal, is the more commercial revenue we will make, because we're going to be at the top of the league. We're going to be always in the news. We're going to grow the fan base by doing that. So they make a dual decision in that bringing in an experienced player on high wages at the right point of his contract running off made sense from a commercial point of view to generate revenues. There's no resale value on him. There's resale value on Jack, a player whose body is going to develop and has not done anything for Liverpool since he transferred. So that is what I admire most about their recruitment. They go straight for players who can make a difference. They've generally done a good job of doing that. Their 2 January transfers came in and had an immediate impact, pushed them up the table, had them competing. The last point I'll make on this is that when you look at that diagram, the only player that's come through the multi-club structure is
Savinho.
And that multi-club structure is not new. It is a fairly mature structure. So the question is that multi-club structure serving the first team? I would argue that it is not. Okay. And therefore, it's not surprising to me that Liverpool has actually not pursued a multi-club model. I do not understand the purpose of it from a sporting perspective. I don't understand the purpose of it from a commercial perspective either. Those clubs are usually loss-making. They're usually cost centers. They're loss-making, so they're drained, and they're not supplying the players as you would imagine they would. So those would be my observations. The fact that they buy experience, their academy and multi-club is not really for purposes of supporting the first team. Nico O'Reilly and Nunes being on that top row, not surprising because they actually don't have any other options. There's no depth in those positions. So they've had to promote Nico O'Reilly pretty quickly. You saw he's had a pretty poor World Cup in my judgment. So you can see that he's starting to feel the strain of all these minutes. So I think their problems are going to be left, those fullback positions.
Yeah, I think for me, from my perspective, is, and I'm going to add something else as well in a moment, is City have always got a careful balancing act in terms of their overall strategy, in terms of finances and what's happening on the field. And the last season, the season before last, even they spent tons of money in the summer window on players like Omar Mamouche and others who maybe haven't. It had a somewhat impact, but maybe not as much as they wanted to. I think they got quite desperate and they were trying to keep up with the Joneses. The fact that to buy again in January, your Gahey's and Semenyo, you're ready. That kind of, you're right. That was like a turbo charge. That was like someone that was this is a poor analogy, but someone that was doing natural bodybuilding, got tired, got injured, and said, "I need the boost," and started taking steroids for that. And then that helped them for a period of time, but then you're going to come off the steroids at some point. So I think they've gone off a little bit from using those players, and whether those players, even some of those players, your Cole Palmers, your Morgan Rogerses, had they stayed, would have been definitely of use to some of what City wanted to do. How they approach their academy players and everything else this is going to be very interesting. I think they've already planning to, or they may already have, and Vator may notice when he comes back is, Nico Williams, for instance, is about to be sold to Everton. There's already a couple of other players that we know that they could be selling as well. So there's a bit of what can I say? Maybe there's my thoughts are that they might still be going towards that direction. Vator, welcome back. I was just to catch you up. We've moved on to with the From Arrivals series. We've moved on from the financial aspects. Now we're looking at this squad analysis part, and the squad analysis part gets broken down into three aspects. The first one here, which is what we're talking about, which is the minutes. I like to use the minutes as part of the indicator. There'll be other parts that talk about the quality, squad resilience, and everything else. But the minutes is an indicator of squad depth, robustness, but also kind of an understanding of where the squad is. Bobby, now we're just talking about. We got to the point where if you see to the bottom of the screen, squad minutes, and your high dependency players, your core players. I was fairly impressed by the fact that you've got roughly 12 to 13, if my count is right, high dependency and core players. So core players are players that play 3,005 minutes plus, for instance, and then you got the core players that play 2,000 to 3,500 minutes. If you combine them, it's about 12 to 13, which to me is quite impressive. You can only have 11 players on the pitch, which shows that there's a good distribution of numbers. And there's a good distribution of numbers because if you go further down, you got key rotation. You got about another roughly 10 to 12 key rotational players that are able to take up, early rounds of games, allowed to be rotated in and out of help to the core players by substitutions at 60 minutes, 70, 80 minutes, and everything else like that. But Bobby and I, to kind of fast forward things a little bit further, are at that point where I think we noticed that you've got about 4 or 5 academy players spread throughout your squad. Most of them are in the key rotation, squad rotation. Only 2, we say only 2, are part of your high dependency core players, which is an indicator of your core players, in Foden and in Nico O'Reilly. Bobby made the point that maybe Nico's probably there because, just out of necessity rather than promotion.
Yeah.
And we've got to the point where we're kind of discussing City's overall strategy. I think, I think Bobby was, and again, Bobby, you can clarify this, kind of leaning towards
I love this.
how you're using your account, how at the moment you're at the stage where maybe you're using more of your academy players for your financial side rather than what's happening on the field. And that is having somewhat impact on your squad. I'm
Yeah.
not too far away from that point of view, but I still think that still having 4 or 5 academy players in your squad is still relatively good. But
I'll speak on
it
that.
remains to be seen if you're going to go back to that, because I think you're about to sell Nico Williams to Everton. So is that process still going on? So yeah, let us know what you think there.
Yeah, first of all, if my man doesn't get the subs that he deserves, putting shows like this and having information on display for us to consume, this is unjust. This is unjust. So do your best, share this out there, because this is incredible. What I love when we get into the numbers and when we're able to talk with, again, other knowledgeable people with regards to football is, the numbers will give you a certain picture frame, and then if you're able to talk to, especially if you're able to talk to the fans of the club, you're able to know a little more of the details. So is it minutes for City? Because again, we did get some additions in January, right? Gahey and Semenyo. Is it minutes for City, minutes overall for the season? Also, maybe not all minutes are the same, because a keeper's minutes, obviously it's played, but in terms of the demand, the stress on a body is not the same as a midfielder. Then I see what we needed with regards to Holland last season. And again, Holland as a striker is different from some, where we've asked him to do a lot more. If you notice on set pieces in particular, defensive set pieces, he's in the box. He's not like many undersized strikers that gets to hug around the halfway and get ready for a counter. He's actually in the box with some key clearances. But I happen to think when you look at how the minutes are spread, and we look at, you mentioned Nico O'Reilly, academy player, love what he did. I think he hit the ground running when he had to step in for Josko Guardiola, who was injured. But if I were to say, again, manager and trust and club, we invested so much in Guardiola, and again, he just renewed a contract. I think he's up until 2031 now. But if there is probably a flirt with who's going to be the left back, it might now be, because of what we saw. Josko Guardiola gave us that left back a couple seasons ago. Maybe he's now central. He's now the left center back. We've got Nico O'Reilly, and we have a Knight Nori to play to be in that position. And again, Nico O'Reilly's a midfielder by trade, and that's why I think Pep trusted him so much to get inverted on that and those late runs into the box and how he delivered so much for us. But that's another one we need to manage. The academy players, I think, will always, and again, if there's a United fan in the chat, apologies, but where the lessons have been, where the teachings have been, when you look at the success within the clubs, everyone talks about their class of 92. Everyone talks about how many consecutive years they've had an academy player in their first team. City has done that, learned from that, and now expanded upon it. The reason why our academy is so well sought after from some of the greats. You got Heskey, who sent his kid to a City academy. You have so many that are sending their players to City, is because there is I know it's not formal, but it's understood because of how agents have trusted where their players need to go. Is you're going to get your shot. You're going to go through the academy, and you're going to get your shot at playing with the first team, whether it's going to be the League Cup or the FA Cup, but you're going to get a chance. We've even seen Pep do that before, and I know the league's different now. Champions League is different now, where there's no like dead rubber games really, unless like actually there really isn't, because many want to have the best finish possible in the quote unquote group stages or league stages. So there's really not a game you can take off. But when there were those dead rubbers, academy players were getting that second leg game against whoever because the tie's over with, right? But the academy players know that they get a shot, and I think it's also good business because we're going to get the youth early. They're going to want to be a part of the academy. We're going to give them that experience, and then that's going to, again, we're going to have the opportunity to sell them on and progress. But when I look at these minutes, it's going to be interesting to see where things really net out when I look at the defenders and when I look at the midfield, because to Johnny Reinders, again, those minutes, they're flattering, to be honest with you, because he played a lot early and then he ended up playing in the League Cup games. Wasn't really looked at to be trusted in the Champions League, and especially when it was kind of like crucial, he wasn't the main guy. So it's interesting on how those minutes change. Bernardo, I think Pep, every team sheet probably just had a permanent stamp of Bernardo Silva on it, right? He was going to be on every, regardless of what it was. I'm being cheeky here, but Bernardo was so trusted. It's going to be interesting to see who is the player that's going to be kind of like the manager player on the pitch. So there's a lot of minutes out there, but Mateus Nunes hit the ground. We should go in the market and get another right back, because currently, if you look at that list, there's no who's B, who's right back B when right back A is out. Rico Lewis isn't. He's put in a role for us. He's played inverted, but he's not the guy. He's not that one. So I think we should be low priority wise, but we should be in the market for a right back. Midfielders, I think Rodri, those minutes are what they were because of his injury last season. And when some want to question why some of the City fan base are like, you know what, maybe it is time to be okay with him moving on, is because how reliable will he be? He's about to get surgery on his back. He was phenomenal in the World Cup, but maybe we need to move past him. And those low minutes, if I'm gonna speak out loud, we sent Oscar Bob. He's no longer. We sent him on loan, but he's moved on. Savinho, again, didn't have the trust, and I hate saying this, didn't have the trust of the previous manager. I hate referring to him as the previous manager, but I'm gonna do it. Pep tried to get him involved. He wasn't able to make it work. Where Maresca is with him, he's gonna have competition now on that right hand side. Semenyo, phenomenal. Maybe not the traditional right wing player, but in terms of how effective he was, I don't see how he gets dropped. I think
Vator, he has to go up on the top row, right? Because he's only been half a season. And so when you double his minutes, that's almost 4,000 minutes than it would have been for the season when you extrapolate it.
Exactly.
Same for Gahey. And City fans don't like Semenyo. And he's such a key player for you.
Listen. If we continue to do some content together, you'll realize I'm not like many City fans. I don't understand how there's the eye test. I get all that, but then there's also the effectiveness. And then what I also like to do is, well, what does the player do for you when you've asked him to maybe not play in his ideal position or role? Like, he's been so good in terms of how I believe that the amount of goals that he scored at Bournemouth, he matched in City for the second half of the season.
I think you have to remember, I think you're a victim of, you've had Riyad Mahrez there.
Yeah.
You've had...
But we can't do that. We can't do that.
But that's the problem.
It is the problem.
I've noticed myself, like, for instance, I don't mind our player, but I don't think I'm not his biggest fan. Like, we've got Voldemort.
Yeah.
People in my chat will know, for instance, I don't think he's a Premier League player, not quality, but I just don't think he's super to Premier League. But I've had Isak.
Yeah.
So I am a bit choosy about who should be my striker. You know, so you've had endless of that. I want to, because I have to move things, and you're going to follow the conversation, and because the next, we did obviously we're going to keep this in mind. Obviously, these are the players, these are the minutes. The next section we're going to be talking about is more towards the quality that's on paper. And it's interesting that you noted, Vator. We're going to go into it now, actually. is this is basically on based from data MB. Hold on, let me make sure I got the right one in there. Yes, so you got tons of stuff here, all
Yeah,
for
this
City.
is. Listen, I've got
So,
a. We're gonna have to speak
so
off camera.
so this is based off from data MB. I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna follow into the, but we're gonna connect the two in a moment. So this is from data MB. And I take what you said in terms of the minutes, and
Yeah.
not that it's flattering, for instance, for the likes of Reinders, because yes, he's played a lot of minutes, but you kind of alluded to, but the quality or the impact hasn't been as good. What's good about data MB is that which is the site I use to provide the percentile quality, which you're going to see here in a moment.
Okay.
It provides the information for players that have played only 1,000 minutes and more in their respective leagues. So if you're in the Premier League, if you're in England, obviously you're in the Premier League. So it only takes the minutes of the players or the percentile quality of the players
Fair
who have
enough.
played in the league. So the numbers of players that we're looking at have now gone from 24 that we've seen in the minutes to now a limited, I think it's 14 players.
Yeah.
Which actually probably gives us a clue. Obviously, you guys were chasing the Premier League, right?
Mm-hmm.
The title, which gives us, I think, even the bigger clue as to who were the players that Pep was really looking at, not only in minutes but also in quality, because we can know it by the minutes they played and by the quality that they had. And what you've got, Vator, is, for instance, obviously Donnarumma dominated the goalkeeping aspect. Trafford didn't play more than 1,000 minutes, so his quality isn't taken, right? So this is this first half is just the minutes on paper, like the best City squad that you can have on paper. This is before the substitutions or changes in squad and everything. This is the minutes. This is the best you can get in terms of City, and obviously Donnarumma's in goal. Ruben Diaz, interestingly, came up as your number one centre back. I have to add this though. And Bobby and I talked about this before, if your minutes are a bit lower on data MB, sometimes your quality impact gets higher. We noticed this because we looked at Garnacho. If you look at Garnacho's stats, they're through the roof. But if you watch Garnacho, you're like, that's
a great example to use. That's a great example.
Thank you, Villa. Thank you, Villa.
If you look at it, it's like he's got the same almost percentile quality as your Kvaratskhelia, but he's played like 1,100 minutes, right? So I want to add that in. I personally think Vardy is probably your best centre back. I love Vardy, but anyway, that's a tangent. Fullbacks is Mateus Nunes. So, by the way, the numbers you see, like 65, 76, that's the percentile quality.
Okay.
And the overall, if you look at the I did the average. So, and I'll kind of show you in a moment. So 68, Rodri, obviously your best midfielder, Ballon d'Or, 81 percentile. That's a very, very good Champions League, world class. Jeremy Doku as your wide forwards, and then obviously Mr. Erling Haaland, head and shoulders above what else. So just to break that down, what it is, Vator. So this is how it looks like on data MB, your goalkeepers. And for instance, for your goalkeepers, it measures the shot quality, long pass range, aerials won, all these type of things. This is how it measures the fullbacks. O'Reilly's a dodgy one because he plays almost like midfield and everywhere else, but you have to get used to it. This is how. So when I talk about percentile quality, it's looking at this, from 0 to 100. Obviously, 80, 90 is the highest, and everything else. And I get like that, and I put it all together to get the average quality for City, which is around 65, which is pretty good, which is very, very strong, on the tip of being very, very good, but not as high, I'm sure, as you'd like. I'm going to include that with, and sorry if I'm putting it, I got to get a lot in because I was going to run out of time, but I'm going to add that Vator with the second part, which is the delivered quality. So that's how much quality did City actually get on the field throughout the season, right? So what you was able to put out, and you'll notice that it's dropped only about 3 points from your overall quality to 62. So so it went from 65 on
Okay,
paper, which is
yeah.
the best you can get, to 62, which is not too bad. Again, obviously, with roughly the same players kind of being the top players as your best players.
Yeah.
Your squad. What's your kind of read in this? What's your kind of overall take? Does it reflect what you've seen, what you've experienced about with City? And
The
yeah,
great
what's
thing
your kind
is,
of overall take?
yeah, the great thing when you summarize it like this is, what you witness as a fan is then also then strengthened with some of with what you brought forward. Um, Donnarumma was our keeper all prem. I think other than the first three
Yeah,
games of the season, he was our prem keeper. Trafford, League Cup, FA Cup, and he was great for us. Brilliant. Ruben Diaz had his injury spell, came on later in the season, and Pep trusted him and had him available. But for a large part, early we had before we got Gahey, we actually had Max Aline or Lane, how you pronounce it. We had him,
Elaine.
Elaine. We had him and Kostanov, right? Like, so we brought Max back from loan. We had him playing with Kostanov, and then before we got Gahey, and then it was actually a spell of Gahey and Kostanov who were the trusted centrally. When Ruben came back, then there was some dropping, but on right hand side, Mateus Nunes was the guy pretty much all season long, with the occasion of Kuznetsov playing right back. But even when you mention the numbers being slightly off, when you look at Nico O'Reilly, is he would play left back, and then there's some games where he was playing double pivot. So number
Right.
wise, maybe things might look a little odd there. Jeremy Doku, the type of player that he is, and the problems that he creates, and again, as he continues to mature, he's going to be that much better. I'm not going to say that he is the best or top 3 left wing, but he has an incredible opportunity to be that guy this season. He keeps improving. His ability to get past a defender is that's the first thing I want. Get past your defender, cause someone else to have to react to you, and if someone's got to react to you, and that means freeing up Erling Haaland, we're loving life. So we've got him, who's been great. He's got to stay a lot more healthy. And again, selfishly, referees need to do a better job of managing, because he does suffer a lot of contact injuries and he's not getting fouled enough, in my opinion. But that's another story. Jeremy Doku, phenomenal. Erling Haaland, if you have the best, and I'm saying it loud for everybody to hear, the best goal-scoring striker ever. And it's not debatable, guys. If we got the numbers up right now, every time, fastest to 10, fastest to 20, fastest to, he is the fastest to get to these goals, and he's doing it for club and country. I think there's no mistakes there. Where I'm nervy, where it's like, what is this season going to mean, is because what you see quality wise from a Rodri, now who's going to be trusted in that role? I got a manager that I'm not too sure what he plans to do. Yes, we acquired Elliot Anderson, but I don't think it would be fair to pull up Elliot Anderson numbers and performances from Forest and then try to put that into what we would expect here. We don't know how he's going to be used, but we got Elliot Anderson. I mentioned Reinders. We got Shirky. We got Foden, contract extension. We're going to have, we're going to have the likes of also a Nico Gonzalez, and I think he might have been on the other slide, but he was trusted when Rodri wasn't available, and Pep was like, Roger, you're back. Nico dropped. So I don't know if Nico G is going to be...
Can I add something to that? Because it
Yes.
makes sense. So sorry to interrupt you, but I think it makes so much sense. And I wish, because Bobby's been asking me, how does it compare to other teams? I wish I could show you, but I was just, because I've covered Arsenal before. I did another show. And guess what? On paper, Arsenal's overall quality is 72. Yours is 65. However, the quality they were able to put out throughout the season is exactly the same as yours at 62.
Okay.
So what's interesting about that is, and I can see why you're nodding your head, is that it goes back to what you're saying. Exactly. What's Bernardo, and obviously we can't talk about Elliot Anderson yet because he obviously hasn't played a game yet, but I think maybe this goes back to what Bobby and I were discussing, and what you're kind of alluding to is, it's still compared to other teams. It's still
Yeah.
your backup quality is still good, but it's not that good. When
Yeah.
when I covered Arsenal with my man Wobojog, who's another phenomenal guy. For me, especially when I'm doing these things, I get to really know what teams are about. And if I were to say Arsenal's superpower, it is their squad rotation. And that's what's really taken them through.
Yeah.
And maybe yours is just half a step off.
That's where it's been.
Right.
So I'll hold my hands up. What Liverpool did their season, what Salah did that season, well deserved. I felt like had we, and again, many want to say that City were in it until Guehi passed back versus Everton and all that kind of stuff. So we were very close within it, but I felt that had we just had that better quality, especially in midfield, as poor as it was, as much as we had to scramble and get Guehi in the January transfer window, I think if we had that quality in the midfield, I think it's a lot tighter of a season. Mind you, I think we lost it by 7 points or something like that, but I think it would have been a lot tighter. That's where, again, when you bring up the numbers and the percentages, I think that's where we lost out. For what Arsenal were able to do, they did better in the Champions League, obviously making it to the final. We beat them in the League Cup final, so they were in a domestic final. When it comes down to how much they were able to have better quality by quality versus their two teams, or starters and closers is what Arteta likes to refer to them as, or starters and finishers, they had that better than what City had, and what City are trying to do would have been a lot better with us not losing the quality in addition, but we're trying to get that midfield up to be able to match with where Arsenal actually strengthened the best last season. I am so sorry, man. Work is killing me. I gotta take this, but I'm gonna try to rejoin if I can. I'm gonna try to
do your thing. Do your thing.
Thank you,
Bobby.
Sure.
You still there?
I am.
What's your your overall take on this before we move on to the last part?
Yeah, I need to clean up something I said earlier. I mean, I forgot that Nori actually existed. I was saying, so I did a bit of a disservice to Nico O'Reilly that he was benefiting from the lack of debt. So he's obviously doing much better than a specialist left back. Nunes, look, if I look at this, I'm actually surprised by the amount of yellow that's on here. And I for a team that's competing at the top of the league, there's a lot of yellow. Is that a fair thing to say? I don't know when you look at Arsenal if it is greener than this, but
while you're talking, let me just get
sure. So I mean, it kind of is striking, right? Because this should be at the top of the table. You should see a lot more green. I think just looking at this pitch as a whole, I think Nunes, that's interesting. This picture suggests that they have a right back problem, and I'm not sure if Malo Gusto is the answer, given that I think that Maresca has destroyed his game. I don't think that's necessarily a good signing for them. But yeah, I mean, I think they've got a little bit more work to do if there's this much yellow on the screen. That's just my big take.
Can I add something to that, to what you're saying, Bobby?
Sure.
So I just looked at Arsenal's, right?
Yeah.
And they've got a lot of yellows themselves, but this might be the key difference for them. So very similar to City, their yellows are on fullbacks, midfielders, wide forwards, and strikers, but their greens, and very, very high greens, are in centre backs and goalkeepers. But I think there's a bit more of a distinction here. Can you see the part where it says overall delivered quality score, and there's a percentage there? I think I can't see the screen now, but I think City's is around 60%. So
this one is now 62%.
So that's the amount of quality they were able to deliver over the season. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at Arsenal's, and you can't see Arsenal's, obviously I can see it, it's 87%.
Oh wow. So what is
It's
that metric actually? What is that?
So-
what does that metric consist of?
So what it means is that, because it's the overall quality that was delivered throughout the season. So essentially what it's saying is that the backup quality that Arsenal had, or not even the backup quality, how do I say it? Arsenal were able to have their best players out for much longer than what City were able to do. And I attribute that to the fact that they were able to rotate a lot more than City were. So Arsenal delivered 80% of their available potential quality over the season. So obviously we have the paper quality, which is the one before that, which is the maximum they can deliver. Then you've got what they were able to deliver, right? And that could be either that's affected by injury, suspensions, do you know what I mean? Transfers in January, whatever, right? Something somewhere. For instance, for City, they didn't have Rodri for big parts of the season. I think that was massive for them, right?
Right.
Whereas Arsenal, they played Declan Rice to the bone, right? Those type of things, right? To be fair to them, and I know that people aren't going to like this, obviously Bukayo Saka played 2,400 minutes overall, but Noni Madueke, he's not as good as Saka, but was able to fill in where possible. Essentially, what it's saying is that, like I said, in terms of rotation, Arsenal were able to deliver 80% of their maximum potential throughout the season, whereas City were only able to deliver 62% or 60 plus percent throughout the season. And I think a lot of that probably is down to Rodri. But I do, and which, even though City have got good depth, better depth than most, it's not as good as Arsenal's. And this is why I keep on saying I think rotation was Arsenal's superpower in the previous season.
You know what? I look, the midfield problem, I actually blame on Pep.
Yeah.
He is so obsessed with this inverting nonsense that he has often a single midfielder on an island relying on fullbacks to provide support. That's my view of this inverting stuff. Okay. And there's so many games that he got that wrong, even with Rodri, where you just had Rodri as the only midfielder, and those were often games where they dropped points at the end. Because you remember the season before, they had a situation where when the opposition scores 1, they end up scoring 3, and a City ended up dropping points. That happened a little bit coming into last season as well. So some of this I actually put on the manager. I don't fully understand that quality delivered score. I'd be interested to really understand how that factors in. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if this new signing from Forest, sorry, what was his name now? The $115 million signing that just did.
Oh, Elliot Anderson.
Anderson. I'm not sure that he's necessarily the answer. And if Rodri's going to be moving on to Madrid, I think they still need another midfielder, right?
So Elliot Anderson's for Bernardo Silva. Yes, they need another midfielder. I think that's why people were suggesting in the chat is what do you call it? Is what's his name? Would City take Bruno G?
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The last part.
What are we doing on high time? Oh yeah, cool.
We're definitely not going to be able to talk about. Well, we can chat a little bit about Newcastle and Chelsea.
We probably would. Yeah, we just do these. I was wondering how many slides we had left to go. then that's what I was on City specifically.
This is the last one on City.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
But we'll add it to the other stuff, and hopefully, we'll catch a little bit of what Vator is saying. So the last part is to do with depth and resilience. So how well can City maintain their quality? So assessing the drop off from their top performer to the best options in each position. Right, and people have to remember this, right? And this is to do with them specifically in the Premier League, and the fact that Data MB will not take your percentile quality, will not measure your quality if you haven't played more than 1,000 minutes, right? So what City? So when it comes to City have only 14. I say only, but they've got 14 players. I'm going to go back to Arsenal in a minute. Actually, have 14 players who were able to meet that specific criteria. How many did Arsenal have? I'm just trying to get Arsenal's. Did I get it for Arsenal? These are good comparisons, man, because how many did Arsenal have? I can't get the number. I don't think I had the number for the Arsenal players. That's annoying. It would have been good. It would have been interesting to see.
Now that I see this data, I think Maresca is going to have a problem.
Hold on. Before we get into this, I know this is going to come from the heart.
From the gut. I can already see this playing out.
This is gonna. Okay, so let me just break it down for folks what I mean.
Yeah.
So if you look at the striker position, right, Omar Mamouche doesn't make this list. It's going to be Omar Mamouche. You would have seen from the minutes. And when it comes to strikers, it's Omar Mamouche and Haaland. Even Omar Mamouche wasn't trusted to play more than 1,000 minutes in the Premier League. That tells you its story, and the fact that he's about to be sold to Tottenham, who finished.
He's been very disappointing. Yeah.
Right. So that gives you an idea. Their wing forwards haven't been too bad. They've got at least, on top of Doku, they've got two other quality options in Semenyo, and I forgot who the other guy was. It was Semenyo and somebody else that played 1,000 minutes. So that's considered strong depth. Midfield is where there is thin depth in comparison. Obviously, Rodri is a standout, but there's 4 other players, but the quality to match isn't quite there. And they
sorry. Remind me who the other 4 are. So is Anderson?
No, this is this season.
All right. Okay,
so this is 25-26 season. So if you look at where is it? Yeah, here.
You have it there. That's just perfect. Sorry, I was more thinking forward. I wasn't thinking about the past. I'm thinking about how this look like when Rodri drops. So we know Silver is gone, and so consider Anderson a like for. So
yeah, Rodri's here in the yellow. Rodri's here in the yellow, yeah, and you can see obviously standout quality, dual win percentages, progressive passing, forward passing, right? He is there. He's their tempo maker. He's their everything. And then obviously you got Bernardo Silva in the dark blue, who's the main ball carrier, also full progressor, right? But then if you look at Reinders here in the pink, yes, ball carrying is right. Yes, ball carrying is exceptional, but that is about it. Then you've got Nico Gonzalez, who's still a good player, still a good midfielder. Will make up a good midfielder. But
what's your assessment of him and why he's not being able to get as many minutes as he needs?
I think because, and I haven't seen him enough. I think he's like he would raise our ceiling. He would raise most teams' ceilings.
He's obviously not a good passer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not probably here.
Yeah, and I think is his first season. Is it his first season? I think it's his first season. And when you got Bernardo Silva and Rodri,
no, it's his second, isn't it?
Is it his second? Okay,
I think so. Yeah.
So it's big shoes to fill. He's 24 years old. It's a good age. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I don't think they're going to sell him. I don't think they should. I still think he's a good midfielder. Is he as good as the rest? I don't think so. But I think where was the minutes? Because who else is in there? Because the minutes show there are the midfielders.
He came.
So if
He
you look at
came
the
in
minutes,
with.
if you look,
He came in with Marmoush. He came in with Marmoush.
he came with Mamouche, right?
Yeah.
So you got Rico Lewis, who's a wide forward, but he's also a midfielder. He's not often there, so that's where it kind of falls down a little bit. I don't think it's necessarily thin. I just think where it falls comparison to Arsenal, for instance, and obviously we're splitting hairs here. It's just not as it's maybe missing as a 25, 26 that one other midfielder that could have filled the gap.
Yeah,
What
just going back.
else?
If you just go back to the midfielder slide there, I think that really
Yeah.
answers the question about why. What we're doing
where
is
are you?
what we're seeing here at Nico Gonzalez is a guy that's not really good at the key passes for a team that passes a lot. So I can now understand why Pep was not heavily reliant on him. But just forward looking here, Silva and Rodri gone. So we got Anderson and Silva being like for like. I think Anderson's probably slightly more defensive than Bernardo Silva. You would agree with that statement?
I think in the system that he played in that Forest, he's had to be, but I think he can be a progressive. So when he played for us, he had a more attacking role.
Okay.
I think he's more than fully capable of that. I think Forest skew people's perspective of Addison as being a defensive midfielder.
Got it. So it's pretty much like for like then with Bernardo Silva. And so if Rodri leaves this page, they've got a problem in midfield. And I think Maresca is horrific at managing a midfield. And that's why I'm saying that I think they've got a problem unless they do a couple signings to bolster this.
And players that are going to be leaving, right? So we're going to talk about that in a moment. Hopefully, if Vator's able to get back in time, we'll be able to touch on some of that. Fullback here is moderate. It's not too bad. Obviously, Vator did mention they're looking for a right back. We know that Tino Livramento is one of those players, but is moderate. Mateus Nunes is actually a midfielder that's playing that fullback, but has been a very good fullback for them. Then you got their strength. Ruben Diaz being some decent-ish depth in their centre back area. Vardy was injured for large parts of the season. I think he's their key mid defender. I think he's very, very good. And obviously Donnarumma did his thing. What's your kind of you kind of alluded to it already, Bobby? You feel like it fell up, well, not to say fell apart, but maybe they weren't able to reach their, I guess, Premier League winning potential down to the fact of their midfield.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Rodri's fitness has been a major issue, and Reinders has been a big disappointment, I would say. Is he more of a 10 than he is an 8, you would say? Like, how would you profile him? No, Reinders. How would you profile Reinders?
So I think this is where I was watching this before Reinders joined City. I was watching a really, really helpful podcast on Reinders from some analysts. The fact that I think obviously he played, and this is why it's important to understand where people play, the systems they play in Italy, where he had a lot more space and time. He was, the ball carrier, but also can pass. But he had a lot more space and time to be able to achieve some of those things. So you had to take his numbers with a pinch of salt. And the surprise those analysts had is that City went for him. They didn't deny his quality, but they did say, but this is in Italy, right? Where the space and everything was available to them. So they were a little bit surprised that they took this route with Reinders. So I'm not totally surprised that things have gone for Reinders the way that it has.
Okay. I
Again,
thought he was
I want to.
quality, but you're right. I mean, it's just not comparable, the two leagues, right?
Yes, and I want to say it's his first season. I hope I haven't got that wrong.
It is. It is his first
And
season.
again, I have to caveat this and add this.
Mm.
Reinders would still be a ceiling raiser in most teams in the Premier League, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Man City, chasing
Yeah.
trophies, chasing leagues,
Yeah.
it stands out, as not as good as, the players that they would have had before, right? It's not David Silva, right? But there's only one David. It's not De Bruyne. Again, there's only one De Bruyne. So it's you can't replace that quality, but then how do you adapt and evolve? And I think one thing that maybe Pep had done was fail to adapt and evolve. And yes, we mentioned Gehi and Semenyo, but for me, Gehi, they still performed and done okay, they done well. But the fact that they had to, break the emergency class window in January and spend this, 100 plus million on these guys, at the time it was to save their season, Bobby. It wasn't
You
to
mean when they
chase the
bought
league.
Semenyo?
Yeah.
It was a recovery job, sure.
Things were going this way. There was a concern. There was a concern that they wouldn't be able to get to. They wouldn't be able to get to. They wouldn't be able to get to the Champions League, let alone compete for the Premier League. People forget this. So it was like you said, it was a recovery job. But you can never imagine that. Remember how swift. I always compared City to this. There was a point in time when City had both Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez, right? But when they were so good that they actually bought Julian Alvarez, loaned him out before he was in their full squad, then brought him in again because I forgot who the other striker Erling Haaland was with at the time, and I compared it to this. When sometimes your computer, without even you knowing, but when you switch on your computer, says, "Oh yeah, I recalibrated overnight." Right? Or I updated overnight, and you didn't even know that you needed it to update. It just updated itself. That's a very well-run computer. And similar to City, they were making moves and transfers and loans and exits for players that would upgrade their team, not this season, but the next season. And it worked exactly that way. That's how good their system was. That Julian Alvarez, who they bought from River Plate, loaned him back out to River Plate, came back the following season and won the treble. Right? That's how good their they managed their squad and their squad depth. They weren't a team that were breaking the emergency glass windows, spending 150 million pounds on players that they should have had earlier. Does that make sense? So they need to get. I think that whatever happened off the field, they need to get back on track a little bit. Again, better than most teams, top 2, top 3 operators in the league, right? But I think it's costing them the league at the moment in terms of how they're operating a little bit. That's my take on them a little bit.
So how do you see you understand Maresca ball better than I do. So how do you see that playing out with this squad?
It's a very, very good question. It will be. I have to. I'm kind of in between where it's probably a good time for Maresca to take over.
Okay.
Because I think Pep called it right to leave now. I think he was running out of steam a little bit. But Pep running out of steam means winning 2 domestic trophies, right? That's Pep's
Right.
running out of steam. And I think they just needed a bit of fresh ideas and fresh impetus. But it's not even just Pep. I think they also, I forgot the other sporting director they had. Was it Kiki? Not Kiki. What was his name? Is it Kiki? I forgot the guy's name.
The guy from Barcelona, right? That's left.
Yeah,
Retired,
but he's left. Obviously, they got Hugo Viana now. We talked about their academy. I'll be so interested to see how many academy players they had when they won the treble. I'll be so interested to see that. I just think it's fine margins, and they've miscalculated things a little bit in the use of their academy players, in their in how and when they upgrade their team, and it's costing them, in key areas. I don't think they make a Mamouche type of signing. I don't think they do that.
Well,
Again,
they'll
that was
have
a
to
risk.
replace him though, right? Because who's the backup to Haaland then?
Exactly. But the thing is, not many people want to be back up to Haaland.
And that's why Marmouche, to me, like, he needs to do more. He definitely needs to improve, but he seems to have the attitude that he's happy to be back up to Haaland. And that's why I thought it was working. I can't see who the quality is then if he goes. But look, my question was more about, I mean, Maresca to me does not have respect for fullbacks, right?
I'm laughing already.
He has absolute disdain for the role of a fullback.
Oh, he would love Nico O'Reilly. So I think Nico O'Reilly is exactly the fullback that he's. Say it again?
Because he's a midfielder. Maresca has a philosophy that everybody can play in midfield. Okay,
because he comes from City, so I think he fits City like a glove. I really do think that.
And therefore, the only real fullback that he's got on the books is Ait Nouri.
Yes.
There's no other fullback on the books, right? I mean, there's that kid that's undersized. I can't remember his name now, but he hardly gets minutes. He's probably going to move on for the sake of his career. The English kid, but look, so it's a team that does not have fullbacks. So I'm agreeing with you that this is a good time for City to appoint a manager that does not like fullbacks. The problem that I have, right? The problem that I have, though, is that defensive midfield position. Taking Rodri off the table, who obviously is the best in the world. So I'm not trying to find somebody that necessarily compares to him. But Maresca has a tendency to leave a DM isolated. Caicedo was getting destroyed. Okay. And I just don't think that they're gonna have that quality in that particular, just in front of the defense, ability to advance a bit. Kind of a Caicedo profile. Caicedo is who helped Maresca maintain any kind of dignity for the 18 months that he was there. And I'm just not seeing the Caicedo in this team. That's what I'm looking at that squad and saying. And therefore, if I, as I look at your slides here, I'm a lot more nervous for them. I thought Maresca might skate by, but I think they've got a problem, and they better land a very good midfielder before the window closes.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I it's so interesting how we both see it. You see Maresca as bad at fullbacks. I think Maresca would, and the fullbacks at City will love Maresca, and Maresca will love the fullbacks at City.
I agree. The fullbacks is a match made in heaven because they're not real fullbacks at City. So that's perfect for him. But as much as he tries to do that, those fullbacks are not going to compensate for the Caicedo role. Who is playing that Caicedo role in this team? Right? They need to find that player. That person has to screen in defense, because as much as this inverting stuff, we think it works, they always expose on the flanks, right? Because it's just too narrow. So any good winger is going to get in behind Maresca's team, right?
So Wobajok says Anderson.
Yeah, but I see him that's why I asked you the question earlier. Is Anderson more of a Bernardo profile who will be a little bit more advanced?
So Anderson will be the fullback will be the Bernardo role. That's why the more I'm talking, the less I see City going for Bruno G. Just based off what you're saying, I think they probably need a dual winner. Maybe they're gonna have to rely maybe on Nico de Gonzalez to step up a little bit, which is going to be interesting. Or they've got a midfielder in mind. They've got somebody in mind that can step into that situation. I know that Man United are big on Chouameni, but
right.
I think if City flutter their eyelids, Chouameni might change
for sure. They need a player like that for sure, because I will predict right now they don't get a dual runner in front of that defense. Maresca is done. Is cooked by January.
What's also interesting is that let's go through this. We'll give it another 10 minutes. Had a fantastic show, guys. But let me just go through this with you, Bobby. City have just sold John Stones to Inter Milan. I think Nathan Ake is also going. That leaves Mark Gahey, Diaz, and Kusanov. Wide forwards, Oscar Bob has gone to Fulham. Savio is about to go to Tottenham. That leaves them with Doku and Semenyo. That leaves them having to get 2 more wide forwards. And so, are you able to keep the count on this, Bobby, for me? So Stones, Ake gone.
Yeah.
Oscar Savio gone and about to go, but put it as gone. Fullbacks, obviously you mentioned Nathan Ake, he's gone. Centre forwards, Mamouche potentially going. Trafford gone, goalkeeper, still looking for another goalkeeper. Central and defensive midfielders, Bernardo Silva gone. Rodri, this is a close one. It was 50-50, right?
Yeah, he's gone, man. I would consider him
he's gone, right?
And
then Nico Lewis. So you're right, Bobby. I think
that entire bottom row is gone. That entire bottom row goes. Savio goes from this. Savio, Trafford, Ake, all gone from the second from bottom. Rodri gone from the core. Yeah. This is looking a little bit thin. And so now I understand why City fans are a little bit antsy. Particularly, as you said, Maresca is going to be delighted with those fullbacks. They suit him perfectly. Okay. But as far as I'm concerned, he misuses them. And that has been his this is why I have been disgusted with him at Chelsea. His misuse of fullbacks. So he will carry this over here. I just don't see what's happening in midfield, in the defensive midfield, right in front of the defense. And if we're relying on Anderson to do that, people should look at what just happened at the World Cup, right? I'm not sure that he's that player.
Why are people so down on Anderson? I don't understand it.
I think it's not down on him necessarily. I think he's a good player. I just don't think defensively he is the solution. All right, he's got legs, yes. But he to me is a proper replacement for Bernardo, who I think is a quality player. But I'm just from a defense. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not a tactical, but I'm just not seeing the dual winning in Anderson.
Let me bring this up.
Yeah.
Let me bring this up. So this is, can you see my screen?
I can, yeah.
Okay, so this is Elliot Anderson this season for Nottingham Forest. Okay, bearing in mind for people to know is I can't see. Let me bring up. Let me just before I show you guys know how I like to do things. We like to do things properly. So let me just quickly show.
So you're gonna put Rodri and Bernardo Silva on there?
What I'm gonna do first is just quickly show. What's his name? Nottingham Forest stats, so we can put it in. So we get an understanding of the system that he played in. Okay, so let me bring this up quickly. Share screen before I show Anderson. Okay, so can you see Nottingham Forest?
Yeah.
So not impressive, right? their key superpower is counter-attacking at 67 percentile, so above average. Good,
right.
Not quite very good quite yet, but pretty low percentiles in every other area. Goals below average, attacking 48 below average, possession 48 percentile below average. Obviously mentioned counters, defending 57 percentile, just above average, physicality low, pressing low. Remember, this is a team that was fighting relegation, right? So that's the system that he's playing. Low possession, low pressing, low physicality, low attacking, low everything. Okay, so now let's look at Mr. Anderson. Can you see Anderson's percentile? Can you see Anderson? Possession 1, elite. So that's a person that's...
So you see him as that dual winner, yeah?
Well, there's a difference between dual winning and possession 1 on data MB. So possession 1 is more someone that intercepts passes, picks up loose balls. So that what that kind of indicates is intelligence off the ball, kind of winning the ball. Dual winning is obviously dual winning, one-on-one,
battling,
battling it out, which is still very, very good. Whereas it's at 68 percentile. Not quite Rodri-esque, but Rodri-esque is a beast. He's big and he's huge. But where his intelligence comes in is the fact he's able to intercept those passes and he's able to pick up loose balls in the first place. But then there's the other part that's really good about him. 94 percentile forward passes is insanely good for a team that is useless at going forward, right? Now, his progressive carries are low, but that's because his team aren't very good, right, in pressing and in going forward in the situations. His key pass at 56 percentile, which is very good, still good to very good. But again, key passes are passes that lead to shots on goal. We've just seen Nottingham Forest are horrible at attacking, horrible at possession. But this guy still got 98%, 95 percentile progressive passes. That's passes that turn defense into attack, right? That is exceptional. Forward passes, 94 percentile, exceptional. So he's got some qualities in going forward in a team that does not go forward. I would say this, playing for City, where you're going to have a team that's physical, that can press, that can keep possession, that can attack, that stats like progressive carries was going to go up. Other stats in terms of key passes is going to go up. His key passes is still 66 percentile. Shots that lead to goals, that's going to go up. So I think that City have made a shrewd buy in Elliot. I think that there is a misnomer about Anderson being a defensive DM because of the team that he plays for, rather than what he really is. To be able to get such progressive numbers, this is him the season before, in his first season. Possession 1, elite, right? And we know Nottingham Forest, I think Nottingham Forest got into Europe last season, right? Key pass at the same level. First season, but it's not too bad, right? Forest is a counter-attacking team. I wanted to see Elliot Anderson for Newcastle because we were more attacking and had better. So this is him at Newcastle, 21 years old, 23-24 season. Bang. Here we go. Here we go. A lot more higher in every aspect. He is a progressive passer. He is a forward passer. He wins possessions. His ball carrying is not as high, but it's still good. In key passes is higher. And this is, I think, what City are looking at. They're saying he can do all these things that Rodri does or Bernardo Silva does. Obviously not to the same level because he hasn't played for team. Part of that reason could be because he hasn't played for the teams of that same level. So for me, he answers part of the question for City.
I would agree. I would agree with you there. So I don't have a problem with this signing, right? It's not him. I think he's a good. I think he's actually potentially an improvement on Bernardo Silva, right? I think you zeroed in on it. It's the dual winning, which I should have separated from the possessions one. So he is elite for sure at winning possession, and that's the legs, right? And he's young. How long that's going to last, we'll see. That requires energy. My issue is the dual winning in midfield, right? And maybe right. So I think that is where the team as a whole. I'm not sure that he is the answer for that in that team, and I believe that a Maresca team requires a dual winner. That's the only point that I'm making. And I'm not sure. Like, he's not terrible at it, right? But all I'm saying to you is if Rodri leaves, I feel like they need to bring somebody else in for the dual winning in midfield.
Yes. And I think his numbers, Anderson's numbers, are probably similar to everybody else at City, to be honest, in terms of dual winning. Rodri's just outstanding, and there's only one Rodri. How do you answer the Rodri question, basically?
He's for sure an improvement. He's an improvement on Silva. Little worse than Rodri. Rodri's elite, but he's not Caicedo either, right? And I'm looking at data and I'm comparing all four of them as well. And I feel like we might need, well, they might need another midfielder. But okay, yep, good chat.
Absolutely phenomenal. And sorry for, I think we've been able to come towards the end part of the show. We've been able to cover City extensively, thanks to my man, Bobby Fairview and Vator Games, our City rep, gave absolutely incredible takes and content on the show. I want to thank Bobby right here with me for the last 2.5 hours. Made it absolutely incredible. Covered City from covering their financial aspect. We really went deep into it. I had 2 slides for it, guys. We did an hour and 10 minutes on it. Do you know what I mean? So that was absolutely phenomenal. And then we covered City's, we did a breakdown of City's squad depth, quality, robustness. And going forward, we're discussing right now, all the City are continuing to sell players in, especially in their key rotation and squad development areas as well. How are they going to fill those areas? And then obviously with the addition of Enzo Maresca, where is that going to take City to? But otherwise, we've had a phenomenal show, Bobby. Where can folks find you? And hopefully you've enjoyed yourself as well.
Great show. Oh, happy to be here. Always happy to be here. Great chatting with Vator. Hopefully we'll get together sometime again. At Bobby Fairview on X. Hopefully folks can see that on the screen. I'm always on there ranting about things Chelsea. As my fan, probably not ranting as much as someone know that we're actually buying adults for the team. I'm pleased about that.
And yeah, I want to big up Vates. I know that he can't be here yet to take a work call, but again, he came on even for the small time that he was, or the limited time he was here. Absolutely incredible substance content on all things City. It adds that dynamic to these shows, having someone of that knowledge on their own team. Absolutely phenomenal. But folks, as always, you, the chat, have been absolutely unbelievable. The chat has been off the chain. I'm sorry I couldn't read all the chats. Otherwise, the show, I should, God willing, one day when I get, we'll get even bigger, I'll be able to read all the chats and we can do 3-4 hour shows. But you guys have been absolutely phenomenal. As always, I've tried to put as many chats onto the screen. You've been adding your bits to it as well. But I'm going to be, but please do continue to like, share, subscribe, and do look out for more content. We're going to be back on Thursday. We're going to talk about more things on Newcastle United. But as always, folks, make sure you look after each other. And as always, take care and God bless.
Oh, brilliant from Sham. And now Murphy can take on the shot.